Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Muhammed?
Walaikum salam. I'm doing fantastic. Alhamdulillah.
It's so lovely to be in a different setting. I think we grew up in a totally different world.
Yeah, definitely. Campus seems like a lifetime ago.
It definitely was. Mohammed, let's go back to your early days. Can you tell us your life story and what your childhood and your background was?
Yeah, basically, I grew up in Lodium, very normal, loving family environment. My dad was a doctor, my mother was a housewife. Very close family. I've got three sisters. We have a very good relationship. Went to the government school in Lodium, did high school at the Muslim school. Was always excelling in my studies, did very well at school. And yeah, after school, I took a year off to do my hifz. And then after that, went to university where we were together, myself and you. And yeah, I studied law, but a very normal environment where I can't say I was short of anything. So all my needs were taken care of. Very loving Islamic home environment, and really no complaints about my childhood. And I think also that early childhood development, it molds you into the person that you become. So yeah, really family orientated, and I'd like to always remain that way.
Alhamdulillah, that sounds lovely. You had or you suffered very devastating losses in your life from both your parents to a child. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so obviously dealing with trauma is something no one is really prepared for or taught how to deal with, whether you be a university graduate or whatever field you may be in. Life never teaches you how to deal with these things. And something that's very interesting, I read it the other day, it was that normally when you lose a parent, not that it's easy, but it's logical in the cycle of life. That's what can happen. If you lose a spouse also, that can happen in life. But just the line in which it falls, where when you lose a child, when you have to hold a child, just thinking in your mind, foreseeing that they are going to form such an important part of your life, and having to then bury that dream, I think it becomes really an enormous burden to deal with. And I think anyone who's gone through it will be able to testify to this. And as much as it affects the wife, it will affect the husband as well.
Yeah.
And I think being a very sensitive person, but also just being a normal human being, it's something very hard to deal with. And yeah, it took me a long time to actually process this and accept this as part of life and part of Allah's qudrat. And I think perhaps in dealing with it, I may have made a few mistakes which led me to certain things in my life. And we can't blame this for that, but we take lesson from that and try and grow and move forward from it.
I'm so sorry. It sounds absolutely heartbreaking.
No, thank you.
So is that where your addiction started?
Yeah, so if I put it into perspective, me myself, I think I have, and many people, many addicts in general, fall into this category of having a addictive personality. I've always enjoyed more of everything. If I go shopping, I want to go crazy and shop and shop and shop. And if I want to go out socializing, I want to have the best, busiest social life, and always want the most out of everything in life.
All or nothing kind
Exactly.
of.
So when it comes to addiction per se, you divide the type of person into two categories. You get those type of people, guys will go out once a month, go out fishing, have their little smoke, and when Monday morning comes, they're back at work and they're carrying on as a normal functioning human being. But the other half of personalities, these people with this addictive personality and trait in that extremism sort of lifestyle, we tend to use. They say there's a common term in the Alcoholics Anonymous text which says, one is too many, 1,000 is never enough, So that when we use, we just can't stop. We just carry on, often with disastrous consequences in terms of life, economic security, family relations, and everything is eventually just destroyed. And that's what it comes to. Yeah.
So what's the feeling of being on drugs or drinking too much, and then that craving for more?
You see, initially, like from personal experience, I know university, it was more for recreation. You're going out, everyone's doing it, and you partake and you carry on and you're just enjoying yourself. But then, for example, when certain things, and it will affect a lot of people in a different way, if you have stress in terms of perhaps employment, in terms of financial security, in terms of marriage troubles, whatever the stress may be, whatever drug you choose, whether it be weed, whether it be cocaine, whether it be prescription meds, whatever you're doing, even if you're injecting heroin, you're doing it as a mechanism to kill pain. You're using it as a painkiller, and this comes to the conclusion of self-medicating. And once you're self-medicating to kill pain, you need to understand that it's not the substance that's the problem. It's that pain in your life that you need to get rid of. And once you can understand what's causing that pain, you actually treat that pain and the cause for that pain, and you deal with it in professional avenues, therapeutic avenues, and there's so many options available nowadays. You need to consider the medical, the non-medical, and find what works for you, and to get you living a normal, fulfilling life. I think that's the most important thing.
So at what point did you feel like you needed to stop or recover?
Yeah, many an addict comes to that point where there's no joy left in the substance. It's not there's no fun in getting high, for example. You're taking and taking just to numb yourself, to numb feelings, to numb circumstances in your life. You're really just punishing yourself, and it comes to the point where physically, because a lot of the drugs make you lose your appetite, so you're not eating, you're not healthy, you're not sleeping. It comes to a point where you go 3, 4, some people up to 10 days without having a full night's of sleep, without having anything to eat. So your body is damaged, your mind is damaged. You're living in this hypnotic state, which is just not natural. And I think a very important part of this is that your connection to a higher being, to your creator, to Allah, that's all lost in this time. Because what came to me recently also, I was attending one awareness program, and the alim spoke about we make these substances, the fulfilling of our desires, we make it as our deity. So we look at these substances as our deity. We will want to basically leave everything aside and only concentrate on serving that desire, And when we look at it like that, it ties so well in with addiction, that our wives don't matter, our children don't matter, our parents don't matter. You know what you are going to lose using this thing, but you still use it. So to a logical man, it makes absolutely no sense. But the danger of this addiction and substance abuse needs to be understood by society at large, that there's so much to learn about it. And there's so much help on offer, and we need to really give people hope in this instance and not just shun them away.
So the new rehabilitation center that you were part of, what is that about? How did it come about, and what's different to other centers?
No, so Alhamdulillah, we are very fortunate. We're not confined to a small space. We sat on a beautiful 16-hectare farm. We're in Muldersdraft. And one of the differences from many of the other centers, we have a full-time alim on board who is basically the director of the center. And we then are able to teach the principles of the 12 steps of recovery, but with a total Islamic ethos. And with that, a majority of our staff at the premises are addicts in recovery. So we all understand what substance abuse does, what damage it has on the families, and really we can relate to every patient that walks through our doors, and we can offer services, and we employ professional people, professional counselors, addiction counselors with their speciality, registered social workers. We have proper medical staff on the premises. We want to tick all the boxes in terms of providing the best services, not for a profit, but for the treatment of the patients, So a complete holistic program where patients are taught a new way of living. Because in addiction, you stop you stop basically functioning as a normal human being, you know. So maybe it's the simple things like making your bed and cleaning your room. We teach those things. Maybe you have disconnected from religion, so we implement the 5 salahs with tafsir classes, with madrasa classes. A lot of our guys, one example, a patient came in and he told us after Jummah, he said, you know what, I haven't read Jummah for the past 2 years. You know, that's the devastation that addiction brings upon a person's iman, a person's self-confidence. So we have to build all these things. And we incorporate therapy in terms of individual therapy, where obviously in confidentiality a person deals with their demons, and we try and guide them along with CBT training and so forth to rectify such behaviors on their part and processing of traumas. And then obviously group therapy, where obviously all of them have this addiction in common. That's the common factor. So by sharing their different experiences within the safe space of the group, they are able to sort of heal, because it's the first time they have a safe space where they can talk about these things. And I think it's a wonderful environment where everyone is equal. There's no sort of rich or poor. And a very interesting fact also is that addiction spares no one. You know, we have medical doctors, chartered accountants, we have hufas, we have alims, we have people from the highest standing in society to the homeless in society. And we all living as one happy family, just trying to help them with their battle of addiction.
Wow, it's really something to think about. So the disease of addiction, can we go more into that?
Yeah, so basically it has been officially recognized by the World Health Organization as a disease. So basically how I explain it is that you are showing all these symptoms that you are sick. And to compare it to something like cancer is very real, because your treatment is not only in program. Like our program is for 4 months, where we tackle first the physical aspect. You know, we give them a medical detox and a herbal detox with multivitamins, your charcoal tablets, your sauna treatments, all these different types of different types of methods that we use to get all the toxins and the physical aspects out of your body, you know, getting the appetite back, getting the sleep routine back. But after that, it's basically relearning behaviors in terms of where your mind is, you know. So your thoughts with any addiction is that you need to have something every day. So now you're getting used to not only not having it every day, but you're not having it every week, but you're not having it every day, every week for 4 months. So your body relearns to adjust. And this is why I always say that there's no quick fix to rehabilitation, you know. Nothing against the 28-day programs. There is benefit in that. But I feel if a person has been using drugs for 10, 15, 20 years, it's not going to come right in a month. So you need to invest that time in yourself to be able to have a chance at this, you know. Worldwide statistics are that 10% of addicts will recover. So that's 10 in every 100. So as fortunate as we feel that, you know what, we're doing well in this, we never be overconfident in this as well. It's always something for the rest of your life that you need to work on and practice the principles that work for you. You know, certain principles may apply to one, may not apply to another, but you have to find, and that's why I feel that that personal counseling is so important, because each individual has his different background that he's come from, although it ended up in the same result at the same place, but they have different ways in which they can be treated. So you should open up all avenues to that person to try and find his purpose, man.
So what would you say to someone who is in the grips of addiction? Is it something that you have to acknowledge you have a problem before you go for rehab?
Ideally, a person should want recovery. And I think a person who always says, no, I have this under control, and if you're using, I would say daily, you have a problem. Even if you're using a very minute amount of substance, if you can't go a day without it, you're going to have a problem, you know. So get help as soon as possible, when the problem is manageable, rather rid yourself of this addiction. Because when it gets its grips into you, it's almost impossible to leave without getting help. And step one, for example, in the 12 steps is admitting to yourself and to another human being that you have a problem.
Okay.
So that admittance, that acceptance, it takes you out of that denial stage, and then you can really go on to process what you need to, man.
Yeah.
And also, I also don't recommend people to be forced into rehab, because they come in holding all these resentments and then end up leaving and then using as a measure of getting back at the family, at the people who brought him to this place. And there's no real willingness. Without willingness, it's very hard to change.
Yes, it is, yeah. So the community at large, what kind of challenges are they facing?
100%. I spoke about this. We had a little community meeting in Kurtuba a few weeks ago. So I actually mentioned that it needs many factors. For example, first and foremost, like we mentioned, the patient needs to want this recovery from him, right? The family of the patient, whoever it may be, whether it be the wife, and I know this is hard to listen to, as many wives coming from homes of addiction. The husband steals from the house. He, for example, may cheat. He may do really unruly behavior because of his addiction, and the support from them is sometimes difficult. But I always say, as hard as it is to offer that support, if they have some support at home, their journey is always much easier. Thirdly, there needs to be professional help. You can't expect to lock someone in a room and expect him to get better. If he doesn't process the emotions, change his mindset, come out of that toxic environment and into a clean, serene environment, it's not going to help. And fourthly, most importantly, is society, because society plays such a role in reintegration.
Yes.
A big challenge faced by many addicts is that they come, they get clean, and they find it so hard to find a job because obviously the stigma attached. And once the stigma is removed, and that's why it's so nice to have these type of conversations, is because basically it's now out in the open. And people need to realize that it's affecting everyone. If it's not in your home, it's in one of your family members' home. As bad as that it is to say, it's everywhere around us. As much as we are Muslims and it is haram to partake in such things, it's so prevalent in our communities. We were in a school in KwaZulu-Natal a few months ago, a primary school, and after our discussion, they did a quick unplanned search on the students, and you'll think on grade 6 and grade 7 learners, they found substances in their bags and everything else. And not only boys, it was girls as well. So it's affecting everyone to the root of our society, and we need to tackle this with an open mind and with love and support and kindness. I think that's the way to do it.
You spent 8 months in isolation, right?
Yes.
What was the hardest part of that, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was at a point in my life where I had gone through a divorce. I lost my father, and it was the COVID time. And a few months later, I lost my mom as well. So I was very down and out, really thinking the world was against me. It was naive thinking, but it was a hectic time in my life, and knowing the only thing I knew that gave me joy at that time was drugs. So from it being a recreational thing where I used to take joy out of it and use it when out partying and everything else, I started using it now to numb myself, basically, as far as possible, and I unfortunately entered the realm of pharmaceutical drugs, which, although it's prescribed by a doctor, if abused, it can lead to detrimental effects, So it left me in a position where I would wake up after a weekend and not remember anything of where I've been or what I've done, and trying to put pieces of my life together. And I just couldn't understand what was happening. And at the same time, it had taken over my body so much that I couldn't go days without it, So I had to wake up in the morning and figure out how I'm going to get my stash, and figure out how to con the pharmacist, and figure out how to con the medical aid. And it was really a crazy way of living, And my family never knew what to do with me. There was this place. There's a wonderful alim in Johannesburg. He has this beautiful property. So he said, this boy just needs to be away from everything, And when I look back at it now, I feel it was one of the most beneficial experiences of my life, because it gave me the time to process loss, to understand that someone telling you that, this is the will of Allah and this is how it was meant to happen and this was your stage in life, it's hard to listen to at the time, and when you're taken out into an environment where it was so untouched by society that I had the chicken staying next to me where I could get eggs for breakfast. I had mountains to look out at. My only duty was, the only compulsion on me was that I make azan every day and I come to the Jamaat Khana for Salah. Okay. So for 8 months, every day, 5 times a day, I made the azan and I made Salah, and I read, I think, I would put it on maybe about 5,000 books in that time. And it was just a phenomenal experience. I must admit, for the first 3 months, 4 months, I hated every minute of it, and I just cried. And I think it was just a part of my life that brought so much healing and understanding and acceptance to the world, I always say that divorce taught me so much more about what a marriage should be. Because there I could understand where I was lacking, my character defects, what to do in terms of being a better person and being a better father. And although through my addiction, I lost my marriage, I have now a fantastic relationship with the ex-wife and everything else. And we are really great friends, And although I lost my children for many years, I could hardly see them. I think I spent, we never got to this question, but I went to rehab 12 different times. Okay. So I spent about 4 years of my life in institutions.
All different institutions, from your fanciest medical aid funded institutions, which cost up to 100K a month, to the simple army style rehabs in Cape Town and everything else, from Joburg to Zimbabwe to, because when my parents were alive, also they just wanted the best of me. And when my sisters, we have such a close relationship, they also just wanted me to get better, and we never really understood it. So it may always not work the first time, but eventually the realization does come. And it takes effort. It takes a lot of effort to get out of it. I admire your courage to share the story. I think not everyone owns their story so bravely.
Yeah, it's very important.
So at this point, how do you handle stress and pressure?
Yeah, I always feel, I think now that I'm sober and on a clear mind every day, morning to night, all the time, you just operate at such a higher level. We must understand, and also in the legal environment, so I'm a lawyer by profession, so I was always in a very high-flying corporate environment where substance abuse is not frowned upon. You use cocaine to have confidence, you smoke weed to be chilled out and to be able to talk well in court and everything else. So it becomes such a norm. Friday afternoons will come and the alcohol will come out in all these big law firms. It's just normal this thing, and you think you're using it to actually perform better. But when you actually off sober mind, you actually realize the true potential of the human mind, and when it's not polluted, you do so much better.
And your greatest fear at the moment?
I think your fears will change with every stage of life that you're in, But coming from my background, I like to look at it is that my fear that I may one day slip back into this. But that fear makes me more conscious of the fact that I always need to be aware of my surroundings, aware of my company, aware of how I spend my time, who I spend my time with, And as far as possible, I try and allocate most of my time to my children, to my family members, and to the center, because I don't have to be there on a Sunday, but sometimes on a Sunday afternoon I'm bored, I've dropped the kids back home and everything else. And I'll just go sit with them in their free time and just have a chat with them, motivate them a little bit, and take lesson from them as to where I came from. And
It's a
give them
reminder
some
for
sort of
you.
hope for the future.
So where do you see yourself in the future, maybe the next 5 or 10 years?
I've actually dedicated my life now basically to helping people in recovery, and I think with the center as well, it's a great base point to start. When we started, we had maybe, when I started there, we had maybe 20 patients. We've grown exponentially. We just over 50 patients at the moment, So I want to see the center grow, but grow in such a way that we self-sustaining and providing this good service and managing it well. But also we cannot forget, and a good part of this is that now we've introduced a secondary facility where we're going to offer employment to our patients with nowhere to go. So for the first year, after they finish their 4 months, they'll have a job to go to for a complete year, where if they perform well, they'll maybe be offered permanent employment there as well, So that will be our secondary facility. And then the hopes are to then have our tertiary facility, which is a halfway house, which is, if I have to explain to the listeners also, it's basically a house where a person in recovery will live. They'll be able to go to work, come back. So more for you guys who are divorced, guys whose parents don't want them at home anymore, wives don't want, and this is a reality faced by many addicts. They have nowhere to go. So it's a safe space for them to love and grow and remain sober. So I think, and that gives them a better chance in this to basically make this percentage of 10% rise. And we shouldn't forget also, so those plans are there also, and we're putting things in place to actually put these plans into reality. But we shouldn't forget the need of women's rehab. It's very scarce, especially a Muslim women's rehab in South Africa. I do not know, I know of one that's functioning, but it's on a very small level. The difficulty arises here is, of course, that to deal with women, you need a very skilled set of female people willing to do this, and I think there possibly is that those group of people around. We just need to seek out those people, make contact with them, and try and figure out how we're going to make this happen and duplicate what we have for the men, for the women as well. Because not only the effects that addiction has had on them, but with women, it comes with all the other factors of women who've been abused, women who've been through rough marriages and need some sort of place to come to where they can heal from all those things. So I think that's, I wouldn't say an exciting project, but a project that's very close to my heart as well.
That sounds, it sounds very interesting. Your favorite quote is, "Don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle happens." How did the miracle happen for you?
Sure. I think it was lessons learned from every aspect of my life, So if I have to look and put my life into basically stages, from my childhood, where I concentrated on everything right, and I saw the benefit of that, in terms of the success in my studies, etc., and then moving on to looking at my marriage, and that how I had the ideal marriage environment, had a beautiful wife, had 4 beautiful daughters, and that the lesson learned from that by making wrong, unhealthy decisions will have you lose things in your life that matter the most to you, and then of course it was having loving parents. And this is something that came to me the other day, that although your parents may have passed, the power of a mother's dua can actually be accepted after her lifetime. Because she always said that, Muhammed, you will be okay and you'll be able to help other people. And I think that always resonates well with me, and that somehow there in heaven her prayers are being answered. So we look at all the stages of life and take lessons from that and try to grow from everything good or bad that happens to you.
I'm sure your mother would be very proud of you today. What words of closing could you leave us with today?
I think basically never lose hope in any human being. No matter what they may have done, the things they may have said, never lose hope in a person, because I think everyone has so much potential within them. You just have to find the way to get them out of their dark hole and show them the light, and people will flourish.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. It was very brave. I don't think anyone owns the good, the bad, and the ugly of their story, and it was very brave of you to share it. So we are grateful for that.
Alhamdulillah.
And thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you, Ava. And one other thing that always struck by me, I say I've lost my parents, but I now have the chance to actually bring so many children closer to their parents again. I may have lost my wife, but now I have the opportunity to actually counsel marriages and bring those things back together again. And I haven't lost my children. I still have them. I see them as often as I need to. But Allah has given me the opportunity to help so many children, young men, on a daily basis. And this fulfillment, I think, and this purpose is really giving me a good direction in life. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.